Hey, real quick, came with a strawberry cow. We got a strawberry tail. I didn't expect him. And the case has a reversible cover to match both versions of the GBA game. But that's not all. Came with a manual too. When was the last time you seen one of these? It's in full color. It even has a comic in the back. Anyway, enough of that. Let's compare.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? As you can see, today we are comparing Friends of Mineral Town. We have the original 2003 Game Boy Advance game on the right side, and then the new 2020 remake on the left. Originally, I had planned to make one big video comparing versions, then giving my overall thoughts on the game, as well as completion, but I think it's better to split that into two, so look out for the other video. No better place to start than the title screen, so let's go. So our games open up to this bright sunny meadow, an area that never actually appears in the game. Our farmer's sleeping in the new game, and running left in the old. Our logos come out, and here we see one massive difference. The games have two completely different names, but don't worry, it is the same series. At the bottom of both screens, we see some text. Victor became Marvelous, so they're the same company, and Xseed handled the remake in the West instead of Natsumi, which leads to both the name change and various localization differences. Anyway, we see the townsfolk gathered behind the Harvest Moon logo. In Story of Seasons, they're still around, but more spread out. Our sleepy farmer gets up and heads left, though he walks instead of runs. He loops back to the tree and the animation restarts. The farmer you get, as well as the pet, is randomized each time you see the title screen. We have start and continue in both games, though in the new we've got two extra selections. One for options, which is only language settings, and the other for a digital manual. Okay, let's start the game. In the new game, we have 4 farmers to choose from: Pete, Yudo, Claire, and Naomi. You can sort of choose your farmer in the old Mineral Town, depending on which version you bought. Pete's in Friends of Mineral Town, and Claire's in more Friends of Mineral Town. We also have the choice of 3 skin tones, which is a nice touch. I'm going with Pale as Paste. Here's the naming screen, more stylized than the original. They've added a simple mode in the remake, but we're not taking the easy road today. So we get a letter from the mayor of Mineral Town, then take our first glimpse of the farm. Thomas runs up on us very angry in the original, but quite calm in the remake, and it turns out the backstory is different between the two games. We're aware of the old man's death in the new game, and that's why we've shown up. We come to check on him in the old game, and Thomas delivers the news. We have a sepia-toned flashback in which we're on a family vacation in the original. In the remake, our vacation was cancelled, so our parents shipped us off to the farm instead. That old man is our grandpa in the new game, typical for the series. But in the original game, that old man is just some lonely old man we run into. A bit weird that he keeps in contact with this kid, but either way, we get a farm. Here's a photo collage. Some of the photos are similar, like riding a cow or chasing a chicken. We meet another kid from town, and they urge us to come back. Then in the present day, Thomas gives us the keys to the farm, as long as we accept anyway. We have the choice to turn him down in the remake, and the credits roll. We can't refuse in the original, but we can say no in more Friends of Mineral Town. Speaking of which, that game has a much different opening. We are burnt out from our mundane city life. We see an ad in the newspaper, then contact PlayStation about the farm. We daydream about farm life instead of having flashbacks. Then good old Thomas greets us. Turns out, he tricked us about the state of the farm. And we get to give him some payback. My favorite is the watering can. After abusing Thomas, we settle into the farm. It's at this point we name the farm in the remake, instead of at the start like in the old game. It's a shame that Claire has the same intro as Pete in the remake. Actually, Yudo and Naomi do too. It would have been a nice little bonus if each farmer had their own variation, especially since more Friends of Mineral Town already had a separate opening. But no matter, we've got a whole new life ahead of us in Mineral Town, so let's check out the new farm. So we wake up in our farmhouse, of course, so let's have a little look around. First thing to notice, we start our day by the bed in the remake. Makes a bit more sense that we're not waking up at the table, but what doesn't make more sense is that we eat at our bedside, making that table a bit obsolete. We've got our blue diary that we can save in, giving us 8 slots now instead of 2. Great for multiple marriages. Our calendar now displays birthdays along with festival days. Our TV is a bit smaller. The channels are in a list now instead of tuning using the D-pad buttons, but the channels are still mostly the same. Our bookshelf now has a lot of records to look at, as well as the usual boring tutorials. The mirror is included at the start in the remake, and with it, we can change our outfit. I think black looks best, so I'll get dressed into that. In the original, the mirror can be bought later on, and doesn't really do anything. Our sock hook is now a stocking hook, and we start out with a small cabinet in the new game. We can buy this later on in the old. We now have display shelves, which is nice. And finally, our toolbox in the corner. We start out with the same tools. I'm taking the old pedometer, and we can step out of here and check out the outside. Thomas greets us, and we turn down his tutorial. He gets sad, but keeps talking. And then Zach comes along and tells us how to live our life. But now we're free to do whatever we like. Let's get familiar with the farmland. First thing to notice, our date and time have moved from the bottom to the top corner. It's stylized to whatever season we're in, and also displays festival days, so we don't forget. Our money is displayed on screen at all times, so no more opening the menu to check. Our equipped tool display is now on the bottom left, and it also shows what tool is next in line. The D-pad now scrolls our tool selection, so we no longer have to do that L+B shortcut. Our rucksack is now displayed on screen, which is super helpful to see everything we have. That is accessed with the right analog stick now, instead of using the L+A shortcut. And just look at how many slots we have. We start out with 8 item slots in the remake, and 2 item slots in the original, 3 if you count what you're holding. Even better, items now stack in the remake, so we can hold 9 of any item in one slot. A huge improvement over the small inventory of the old game. Also, we now start out with 4 tool slots instead of 3. And our toolbox can be accessed from the outside now, which makes a lot of sense, and saves us some trips inside. Our tool bag and rucksack can still be upgraded in both games. We'll do that a bit later. The last thing added on the HUD is our stamina and fatigue meter in the upper left corner. It's displayed with power berries, which is pretty neat. Bringing up our menu, we've got our diary or journal in the new game. We can see our tool and item screens. Bring up the town map, which is beautifully illustrated in the remake. Each of the houses really stand out more now. We've got our farm map, which displays everything down to each and every weed, but also any crops or animals we would have. We can zoom in the remake, which is nice. We've got some personal info about us, our farm, and our finances. The original shows a bit more from the menu, but all of this can be accessed from the bookshelf in the new game. And we now have a villager list, though we haven't met anyone yet. Anyway, enough of the boring stuff. Let's look around. The new game has an auto run just by fully pressing the analog stick. So no more holding R button. And we can walk in diagonals, where we couldn't in the GBA game. Our house has a pointed roof now, instead of the round. And it sits at a bit of an angle. There's crates and logs filling in the empty land next to it. The mailbox is much the same. Our pond is now at the top of the farm instead of beside our field. And we can now store fish in it. In the original, our doghouse is here, but we don't use a doghouse in the remake. Actually, we don't even start out with a dog. We'll get him later though. Our stable is much larger now, and has switched spots with the barn. Here's the barn. Simple enough. There's milk cans and hay in the empty space next to it. We no longer have any use for a material shed, so that's gone. Our fence is white instead of brown. Oh, this lower corner of the field now starts out with some grass. Our chicken coop and windmill are a bit lower in the new game, and it looks a bit more cozy on the outside. And then that tree is a bit larger now, and it drops grapes. I guess it's a grape tree? Not a vine? The honey hive is no longer shown after we harvest it, but it'll be back the next day. Our character automatically bags whatever he picks up now, which is pretty helpful in most situations. And we can no longer drop items on the ground, though a throwaway option is available in the menu. And finally, our shipping box brings up a little menu now, which is super convenient. And that's the farm, at least for now. We've got a lot of improvement ahead of us, but before any of that, we'd better get acquainted with the town we're living in. Let's check out Mineral Town. I'll start with just the scenery, ignoring the villagers at first. Then we'll do a second lap around to meet everyone. Heading north, we've got that classic brick road. Once again, the fence is now white, and we've got some extra trees on the right. The sign is more prominent, and it's been simplified a bit. Our first business is the blacksmith's forge. Still a quaint little house, though the dome is now gone. The sign is so much cooler now, being a sort of statue of a hammer, and we're reading the plaque. Tool upgrades now have their own menu, and we see the progress here instead of in our memo screen. All his other services are still available. The scenery of the forge is much the same. Everything is there, and it's all in the same spot. And the anvil is called an anvil instead of a table. Next door, we have the empty plot, or the empty lot. Same difference, I suppose. A bit of dirt in the old game. Just south of there is the poultry farm. Pretty much the same outside. I like the detail with the greenhouse. The building itself is much different. It looks more like a shop now, where before, it looked like they were actually living inside of a coop. Still got a chicken sign though, which I like. She still buys and sells chickens, though now there's rabbits we can buy, new to the remake, as well as the brown chicken. Feed is still available, and the medicine has been replaced with a rabbit breeding kit. Heading out, there's one convenient difference here, and that's this pathway between the two farm shops. It probably doesn't seem like much, but it's so nice to be able to just walk on through. Though Popori doesn't take advantage of this new path. Heading over to the livestock store. Much nicer sign overhead. The barn now has a door, though we still can't go in. The cows are grazing alongside the river. Inside, we can buy cows and sheep. There's 3 new cow variants. Look, there's that strawberry cow. And the brown one is a coffee cow, not a chocolate cow. Wonder how that happens. They've also added an alpaca, which act much like the sheep, though with a different wool. Fodder is still available, and Miracle Potion has been renamed to Breeding Kit. Again, the medicine is gone, and we can buy a bell in the old game. Here's that little backyard area May plays in, and it still has that row of flowers. Heading north, we reach the town square. There's still that mesmerizing brick pattern, but now there's a new compass pattern in the center. The billboard is a bit fancier. And the wives of the town still gather by this trash can. To the east, we've got the beach. There's no longer a bend in the staircase, which saves a lot of steps, especially if you head to the beach often. Here's Zach's house, with some posted photos of Lilia, which is pretty questionable. Juan sells us some seeds, a crop for each arable season, as well as a truth jewel. It's not cheap either. Outside, we've got the same dock, but a different boat. The old boat looks sort of like a cargo ship, but way shrunken down. The new one is more of a speedboat and is decently proportioned. Here's the sign that activates the fetch game, and then along the shore, we see the scrap logs and crates. If we fast forward to summer, the cafe is available. Unfortunately though, that wave painting up top is gone now. The awning is blue instead of red. Inside, there's been some renovations. The floor is now beige instead of white, and the tablecloths are now green. Thankfully, the wave wallpaper is still in place. And I just noticed that the remake takes out the lower wall when indoors. And here's my favorite part, the penguin poster. And what used to be a menu is now a painting, though it still looks the same. Speaking of the menu, baked corn is now roast corn, and snow cone is now shaved ice. I think I'll have the water. Continuing north, we come across the inn. It's mostly the same with the barrels and hedges surrounding the picnic tables, as well as some flowers. There's a new sign to the left, which looks nice. Inside, the tables are as empty as ever, and the placemats are turned 90 degrees. There is a phone. though we can't interact with it in the remake. Box lunch is now the daily special, but I think I'll have the water. Upstairs, there's fewer beds, though they've added an extra room. Now Gray and Cliff each get their own, though there's still some amount of sharing. The cat has no worries in the old game, and is apparently plotting something in the new. Next door, we have the Adge or Aja Winery. Their day off switched from Sunday to Saturday, and we have a very small window to purchase goods. Grape juice is still grape juice, but wine has changed to premium grape juice. Either way, it has no effect on your body or mind, at least as far as drinking goes. The house is much the same, with barrels in the back, and next to it, we have the cellar. Out back, we've got the grapevines, but it's getting late, so let me reset the day real quick. Okay, the grapevines continue behind the house in the new game, and overall, the building just looks a bit nicer, with the grape sign up top, or the droplet sign in front changed to this fancy plaque. Here's Basil's house. Then the library with updated signs. The floor is a whole lot easier to look at, and that third chair is still pulled out. A bunch of books, and then the ladder. Upstairs, there's even more books, all with information you'll probably never read. Ellen's house. Not much to say, but the vase is empty now. The rug's moved, and some colors are different. Thomas's house. Different floor, same clock, same fridge. The store's now got a blue roof, and the signs have changed. Inside, we've got items scattered about the shelves. In the new game, these don't correspond to anything, but in the old, everything we can buy is on display. In fact, the seeds are the only thing that get a menu. I like the idea of it all being displayed, but the list is just far simpler. Dumpling powder is replaced with curry powder and dango flour, and rice balls is now named onigiri. The wrapping station has moved to the counter, and that old basket is now a relic of the past. Karen and Rick still stand in front of the bench instead of on it. And the hospital is now a clinic, and there's now a big syringe on the sign. It now looks a bit more welcoming inside, with the rug and the whole lot less white. Botagizer is now stamina booster, and Turbo Jolt is now caffeine. The doctor will still give exams, and it looks like he got rid of that old chair. Now the church. Very blue now with a smaller window. The graves next to it are now stone benches, and the big grave in the center is now a statue of the goddess. And we find a truth jewel here instead of at the doghouse. Inside, there's still a red carpet. The pews are now white, and the candles are still there. The stained glass has less color now, but still looks real nice. Here's the confessional. And then the backyard, which is unlocked later on. There's a little straw hut on the other side. This is where the sprites live. I like how each of their beds and seats are color-coded. Then lastly, we got two park areas not in the original game. The first one is just south of the church. You can kind of see it in the old game, but it's blocked off, though no one goes here even in the new game. Second one is just south of that, and it's the Secret Forest. The 2 new characters will come here from time to time, but it's mostly here for us to collect material and to fish. Leaving town now, we head south. There's still this indestructible stump here. And what is now a log pile used to be called tree. Technically they're not wrong. Inside the cabin, there's a bit more of a mess in the old game, though everything else is mostly the same. That is until you go to the right past the wall. This is a brand new room for the new kid in town, Gotz's artistic apprentice. Anyway, we can buy lumber, and now stone, plant new trees in the new game, and upgrade our farm in both games. He's got items for sale such as a new LCD TV. It's no longer 2003 after all. Speaking of TVs, the shopping channel is gone, and Gotz sells this stuff himself in the remake. A bit more convenient. To the west is the hot spring area. The stumps are now fully grown trees, and the pond has lost its stony edge. The mine is up north, and the spa is below. We can still throw an egg in. Spa egg is now hot spring egg. Our farmer doesn't jump in anymore, unfortunately, and that towel on the hat is missing too. Okay, here's another one of those major game changes. The spring area and the rest of the hill are now connected. This saves so much backtracking, though the interesting thing to note, the stairs go up from the spring area in the new game, whereas the spring area is clearly elevated in the original. This lower path is still blocked by the stones, or sown rather. They're in a slightly different spot. And just like in the original, there's absolutely nothing past them. Disappointing, really. I couldn't wait to upgrade my hammer. For this? The lake's looking a lot prettier, and the area is now surrounded by bamboo. Now those random bamboo shoots make a bit more sense. This tent is new. It belongs to the other newbie who we'll meet later on. Heading up past the bridge. Look at all those flowers. Let's talk foraging for a moment. The spawn rate is much lower in the new game. Sure, there's also a lot of flowers here, but you can't pick a lot of them. Flowers cannot be shipped in the original, but can be in the new. And you rarely see this many bamboo shoots in the remake. Instead of 3 every day, it's anywhere from 0 to maybe 2. Anyway, let's continue our climb. The mountain area is absolutely beautiful in the new game. You don't feel the height as much, but there's just so much more to look at. It's all mountains in the original, but forest in the remake, with the mountains further back. Also, there's a town scene in the original. No way that's Mineral Town because of how far west it is. And I'd say it's Forget-Me-Not Valley, but there's no ocean. Whatever. Let's watch the sunset. On our way home at night, we spot a raccoon in the remake, which is cool, but we saw a monkey earlier in the original, which is even cooler, though there's plenty of wild animals to see in both games. Speaking of which, there used to be these wild dogs at night that would come to your farm and eat your chickens, but in the remake, there is none to be found. The lighting looks nice in the remake. Just look at the lamp and the light pouring out of the chicken coop. Looking at these games side by side, the colors just look odd in the original's nighttime. Heading into town, we see all the houses and shops lit up, except for the store, strangely enough. And then by midnight, the whole town is fast asleep. Now our only lighting is from the street lamps. The house lights stay on all night in the original. Time to hit the hay. Now, despite going to sleep and waking up the next day, you'll notice that it's Friday again. Well, that's just because Friday's the only day of the week that everything's open for business. So let's go meet the townsfolk. Besides the comparisons, I think it'll be fun to decide which designs I like better between the two games, so I'll keep a counter. We'll go in the same order as before, starting with Gray. So, first thing we notice is the hat is missing. His hair is seen now, and has a slight poof to it. Looks nice, I think. His expression is spot on. His jacket is replaced with some much more casual attire. I think the purple button-up suits him well, and that UMA, or UMA, has moved to his t-shirt. So I gotta be honest, I never really liked Gray in the original. I know his shyness or reluctance to be befriended is part of his character, but it's never appealed to me. He is never happy to see me, and he is always hiding under that hat. Never liked the hat. But in the remake, Gray has jumped the ranks from one of my least favorite characters in Mineral Town to now one of my favorites. He just seems so genuine, so point to Story of Seasons. Saibara, the old man blacksmith. He still has that iconic down-pointing mustache, beard to match, and those brows. It's like a second stash for his eyes. His bald head is now covered with a green hat, and his clothing is still green as well. His sleeves are gone in the redesign. Biggest difference though, is old Saibara now has eyes. To be honest, his new design gives him sort of a dwarf appearance, like he should be hanging with Snow White or something. So the point goes to Harvest Moon. He seems more of a weathered old man, what you'd expect from a lifelong blacksmith. Lilia, still sporting that pink hair of course, though it's one ponytail now, instead of the pigtails, a headband instead of the ribbon, and the short bangs are longer and pushed to the side. Overall, I think I like her original design better, but there is one problem. She looks more youthful than she should be. Like, I could totally see myself mistaking her for one of the bachelorettes. She comes off more mature in the new game, fitting as she's the mother of 2 grown adults. So, points to Story of Seasons, simply cause I think it fits better. Popori, or Potpourri, perhaps? I've always said Popori. Pink, pink, pink. She's another one who I've never really been fond of. I don't know, she's just kind of weird. Like, weird's not bad, but I don't know. She's always seemed sort of an airhead. Still is, I guess, but it comes off as more of a naivety. She seems a bit younger now. I mean, she acts like a kid anyway, but in the context of the art style, everybody kind of looks younger. I'm not sure which to pick, so let's just give her a gift and move on. Rick. He is mostly the same, yet entirely different at the same time. Still has the long hair with the bangs, though it's slightly neater now. His glasses are no longer milk bottle lenses. Look at those eyes though, a lovely shade of purple. His clothing is different. yet keeps the same colors. That apron is now a vest. Rick gets memed on a lot, but he seems to be doing well for himself these days, so point to story of seasons. Okay, so Barley is now Moogie, which is fine with me. Barley is a bit too on theme. Anyway, he's mostly the same. His gray beard and overgrown eyebrows, his pointy nose and those wrinkles on his bald head. Biggest difference is his glasses. They're not fogged up anymore, letting his expressions be more clear. So just for that, point to story of seasons. Plus, I like his little hat. So May is now May. I mean, sounds the same, but is spelled differently. Her twin braids are now a single bun, and she no longer has that necklace. Both designs are fine, but the point goes to Harvest Moon, cause it looks a bit more original. Big blockhead Zack still has that iconic cylindrical haircut. The tank top and the towel makes him look like he just got off a treadmill. He definitely looks more mature nowadays, almost like this is Zack 5 years later. He looks more professional. I don't know what it is, but something in his face just doesn't match up. He looks sort of empty-headed in the old game, and I don't even know what in the new. Maybe it's that nose. Let's look at Angry Zack again. That doesn't help, but it's funny. I don't dislike Zack as a character, but I can't say I like either design. But just cause he's less jock-like now, I pick a new Zack. Now Juan. Yeah. Quite different. First off, his name went from Juan to Huang. Similar enough, but his design? Very odd in the original, and sort of cool in the remake. That raincoat looking jacket is now some designer threads. That propellerless propeller cap is gone, which is good, cause it kinda looks goofy. The long sort of bang in front is just a little flick of hair now, and that long braid is just a little tail. His sunglasses are more of a tinted glasses, if that makes any difference. He's holding an apple now, which is fitting. So which one's better? Well, that's a hard decision. They almost don't seem like the same character. He's very cool and confident now, where he was odd and a bit sneaky before. I like the idea of an oddball character, but it's hard to look at the new design and say it's not better. So point goes to story of seasons. So Kai. He quickly became one of my favorite characters in the new game. Part of that is probably since he's only there for one season, so you tend to savor it. I mean, it's like that in both games. He's just so cool and straightforward. Anyway, his clothes are more casual now. Seems to be a trend of the remake. Though maybe there's a bit too much purple. I don't know. I like the bandana, though the hat also looks nice. I think it's the eyes, though, that has me sold in the redesign. So, another point to story of seasons. Anne is now Ran, which I'm so happy about, cause little Anne stole the name of my wife from the Super Nintendo game. Anyway, this is my favorite redesign in the whole game. Here's another I never really cared for blank in the original, but I mean it. I never liked Anne. She's always felt too childish, like marrying Lumina in A Wonderful Life. It's weird. Well, she's more mature in Story of Seasons, and she just looks so nice. Her braid is now a ponytail, still tied together with a white bow. Her farm attire from 64 is now a sort of dress, and that lean she does looks a touch less awkward now. Just like Gray, her ranking for me skyrocketed. She's definitely going to be my marriage candidate of choice, even replacing my usual Karen. Story of Seasons definitely takes the cake with this one. Doug or Dudley. Very similar design, very orange. His mustache has sort of a pincer effect in the original. It's very level in the remake. Clothes are different. I think green suits him a bit better. He looks a bit angry in the original, and confused, shocked in the new game? I don't know. I'll give the point to Doug. Upstairs we see Anne/Ran at work. And look, it's Gray. Remember how I said I didn't like him in the old game? Yeah. And then there's Cliff. I like both designs, though they're quite different. Like everyone, he's a bit more casual in the remake. The clothes look nice, the hair is fine, but his original design? Much more mysterious, yet more forthright. You understand instantly that he's a lone wolf. He looks like he's straight from the mountain. He probably made that vest out of bear hide, and the ponytail just ties it all together. I like Cliff in the remake, but the point definitely goes to Harvest Moon. Oh, and Cliff always has a chance to leave if you don't get him a job, but only in the remake does Cliff decide to return to Mineral Town, which I think is a good change. Duke. Well, I don't even know what to say here, but I think I'll use Duke as an example of how I feel about the redesigns. Neither design choice is objectively better or worse. If you've never played either version of the game, then you saw Duke for the first time, doesn't matter which version, as long as they're not side by side. Would you think it's a bad design? Probably not. The only problem comes when you compare them, which, ironically enough, is what this entire video is. But neither Duke is better. They both fit just fine, but they're not even the same character, just the same name, which is odd cause they changed some other names. But this round's a draw. If Duke is an apple, then Duke is an orange. Moving on. Mana. Now, Mana is the same in her expressions. Her biggest difference is the hair. And in real life, just a haircut can make a tremendous difference in a person. I've seen it, trust me. I wouldn't even be the same person if I didn't have this. But I like her attire better in the new game. It's a bit more bright, and the grape earrings are a nice touch. Her text speed is abysmally slow though. I get it's sort of an inside joke that she'll talk your ear off, but I don't like it. She's less of a joke in the original, feeling more like an actual person, so point to Harvest Moon. Basil. Can't say I've ever liked Basil in Friends of Mineral Town. In Magical Melody, sure, but he hardly does anything in this game. Either way, here he is, looking a bit more youthful in the new. In the old, he looks like he's in the middle of a hiking trip. Like, pull up a seat, Basil. Relax. You're in your own home. He still has a bag in the remake, but it's a lot more subtle. The clothes are mostly the same, though I like the new bow tie. And the leaf in the hat is a nice touch considering he is a botanist. But overall, well, if dude lived in a tent on the mountainside, I'd definitely pick his old design. But solely based on the fact that he spends most of his time at home, the point goes to the remake. Setting matters. Now, Basil's wife, Anna. Quite a similar design. Still has that swoopy short hair, though it's a bit less plastic now. That turquoise color takes up more of her outfit now, which I like. The biggest difference though, is that she's actually making eye contact in the new game. In the original, she's just staring at the fridge while we talk. How rude. Point to Story of Seasons. Mary is now Marie. I like the name Mary better, but Marie is close enough. I never liked this character. I still don't. She looks similar enough, but I don't like the way she's looking at me in the new game, so point to Harvest Moon. Ellen, the very same from Flowerbud Village, if I'm not mistaken, but Ellen's a sweet old lady in town. Still has that bonnet, though it's prettied up by a blue bow. That giant blue scarf-looking thing is now thinner and incorporated into her outfit, and just like Saibara and Mugi, her eyes are now seen. Kinda. The thing about Ellen is she's a frail old lady, but in the original, she's just a frail old lady. She's got so much more life in her in the remake, so points to Story of Seasons. Stu. Stu is now you. His hair went from black to brown. Oh, and that bowl cut's gone, which I think is fine. He's no longer wearing suspenders. Let's see Crying Stu real quick. Again, that doesn't help, but points to Story of Seasons. Thomas. Now we've already seen him, but man, does he look like an egg. Well, come to think of it, he kinda looks like an egghead in the original too. His redesign is spot on, yet looks completely different. Still has the red hat, though it's 16 feet tall now, which is funny. I like that. Still has that rounded nose, that prominent mustache, the sideburns, the glasses, and the red coat, though his shirt and bow have switched colors. I think I like the blue bow better, but how did his eyes get so big? Those glasses must have telescope lenses. They're just subtle little spectacles in the original. Point goes to Harvest Moon. That design for Thomas is just so iconic. Then we got Harris. Does he live here? He's always out and about. I guess there is a second bed. Harris is quite different. Still has a pointy nose and purple clothes, though he's put on some weight. I feel like he looks more like a mailman in the old game, and a police officer in the new, though the badges probably help. His hair pokes out a little bit from his hat and redesign, and he's grown out a mustache. I actually like his new design better. Seems friendlier and certainly more jolly. Donut Harris gets the point in this round. Jeff. Now Jeff is quite different, yet his expressions are spot on. He's very fancy in the original. Dressed up, bow tie, styled hair. Again, more casual in the remake. The purple sweater looks nice on him. His thin mustache is still present, though his hair went from black to brown. His hairstyle is a slight bit unkempt compared to his original look. And overall, I think it fits the stressed out shopkeeper feeling I get from him. If Jeff was serving wine in a restaurant, his old design would get my vote, but he's not, so point goes to Story of Seasons. Karen. Now Karen is very different, though I can't really put my finger on why that is. She still has that blonde hair, though I guess it's more of a blonde to brown gradient in the new game. Still has those two side bangs, though they're fuller now and less prominent. Green eyes are a check. Her outfit's different, though I think both suit her. I guess the new one looks a bit more cozy. Some people have said that she's lost her tomboyish look, but to be honest, I don't see a tomboy in either portrait. I think the biggest difference is her bangs. You don't see her forehead in the new game. I think both designs look really good, but point goes to the OG Karen. She was always my choice in the original anyway. Sasha. Sasha likes to hide in the back room, which is locked in my Harvest Moon game, so we'll go to the square to find her. She seems so much less reserved now. Still has the braided bun, though that purple headband looks real nice. There's more patterns in her clothing. I just think her personality shines through a lot more in the new game. So, Ellie changed her I to a Y. The hair's slightly different, the bangs pushed to the side in the redesign, and I guess her hair has a bit more of a bob to it. The dress is quite similar, though the white shoulder parts have been toned down. I really can't give a point to either because the designs are spot on. If I had to pick, I'd go with the new one, but that's only because it's cleaner. It has been 17 years after all, so no decision. Doctor. He really doesn't have a name yet? Doctor's stare is exactly the same. It's like he knows I haven't been taking care of myself. His eyebrows are smaller, and his hair is a touch neater. He's still rocking that doctor's coat, though the stethoscope's gone. My vote goes to the new doctor, simply because he doesn't have that goofy pizza cutter on his forehead. Here's Cliff again, this time in the church. And then Carter. Oh no. What has happened here? His expression is the same, but that's it. I really don't understand this new design. He already looked like a priest. The black robe, the white stole. I like the touch of green in the shirt, but he just looks goofy in the new game. What's with the hat? Why so blue? The old Carter seems like a sensible guy, someone I'd be happy to praise the goddess with. New Carter? Well, let's just say I left my farm on. Here we have the sprites. They're timid, chef, nappy, bold, staid, and hoggy in the original. And then mint, cherry, pumpkin, plum, blueberry, and sunny in the new. Much better names, I think. It's like the old ones. We're going for a Seven Dwarfs type feel, with grumpy, sneezy, and slappy. The new games are very fitting, and Aqua is still Aqua. Their collective name has switched from Harvest Sprites to Nature Sprites. Don't know why that is. They're very elf-like in the old game, and in both versions, they're just a recolor of one another. The new sprites are cuter, so points to Story of Seasons. Next up, we have Jennifer, one of the two completely new characters in this game. She's okay. Kind of comes off as a generic hippie, but she's cool, as long as she's not talking about the Earth's energies. Her design is fine, though I'm not completely sold on the hat. She hangs out at the secret forest, and at that tent by the lake. This is her tent, but she doesn't live there. She sleeps at the inn, which kind of negates the whole tent situation. Next we got Gots. Now the biggest difference isn't that he switched that Z to an S, or that he's added a T. The biggest difference is his appearance. In Harvest Moon, Friends of Mineral Town, Gots always seemed like a gruff, angry alcoholic. Maybe that's cause he's based off a gruff, angry alcoholic. He has always seemed too short-tempered for my tastes. The new Gots is humbled out. Still hard-working and much plumper. Still has a beard, but not on his chin. He's got squinted eyes and a much less sweaty-looking shirt. Gots with an S gets my vote. Brandon is another completely new character. I actually really like his design. The red hair, his artistic endeavors. Shame I often forget about him alongside Gots, since they live outside of town. Looking at special characters now, we have the Harvest Goddess. The goddess always has a neat design in these games. Here, she no longer has the two side buns or the braid. Her hair flows a bit more, and it's fashioned with a crown. The earrings are missing, but she's got a bracelet and a wand. Both designs are nice, but I feel the new one has more life. Speaking of life, or a wonderful life rather, the goddess lets us connect to the GameCube in the original. An interesting thing to note is that she simply calls it GameCube's Harvest Moon in Friends of Mineral Town, but in more Friends of Mineral Town, she calls it by the name, Harvest Moon, Another Wonderful Life. Makes me wonder if you can't connect more Friends of Mineral Town to the standard A Wonderful Life. The other water-dwelling deity is Kappa. We find him by throwing cucumbers in the lake. He's not the same Kappa. I don't mean that as in he doesn't look the same. I mean he's genuinely not the same Kappa. My evidence is the statue. which states that it is a different kappa, yet shows the original one. Anyway, the designs. The old one is funny to look at, but the new one is, well, he looks cool. With that long green hair and the golf cap. Honestly, it's a shame he's restricted to the lake. The new design really makes me want to get to know him, though he'll hardly even say a word. Oh, and cause the lake freezes, that means no kappa in the wintertime. That beak though! So then Lou. I don't know why she looks so small in the original, but anyway, yeah, she's mostly the same. Her skin is a shade darker in the remake, but her hair, that yellow shirt, red collar, even the necklace are exactly the same. Biggest difference is she's got an O in her name now. And then we've got the traveling merchant Van, or Lou, with an O? What's going on here? You're telling me there's two characters in Friends of Mineral Town, both named Lou, and they both visit from Forget-Me-Not Valley, which is Forgotten Valley now? Van's name was Van in A Wonderful Life, and Lou's name was Ruby. You're telling me both these characters climb up that hill and decide to change their names, but only when they're in Mineral Town? And they both chose the same name? Anyway, yeah, this is Van. His design is very spot on between the two games. Very prominent mustache, the eyebrows to match, the red shirt, suspenders, white collar, even down to the yellow pen in the pocket. We even see his ponytail in the field model. Only difference really is that he's just as sweaty in the GBA game as he is in Wonderful Life. Also, in the new Mineral Town game, Van visits an extra day in each season, always on the 15th, so long as it's not raining. And he sets up a pet shop in the square. This is how we get our dog, since we don't start out with him. We can also buy a cat, or capybara, or penguin. I don't know where he's getting these pets from, but I'm not complaining. So anyway, no points to either Lou, cause they're basically exactly the same. By the way, Van and Ruby's names were fixed in more Friends of Mineral Town, though the remake reverted Ruby's name back to Lou. And then last, but certainly least, cause he only shows up once a year, we have Gourmet, or Bon Vivant in the remake. He's quite different, but just as weird looking. Very egg-like. Still has a giant mouth. So he's ditched his iconic purple suit, which is a bit of a shame. It's one of his standout features. These days, he's rocking the steampunk caterpillar look, I guess. It's an intriguing design, though my favor is in his old look. But I do like that he sometimes makes this face. Okay, well that was a long section, but it is called Friends of Mineral Town after all. So it turns out, I like more of the remake's characters better, though that's only by quantity. There's definitely some I think are better in the original, and many that are perfectly fine in both. I've certainly played my fair share of Friends of Mineral Town as a kid, but this entry was never as impactful to me as, say, A Wonderful Life or Magical Melody, even the Super Nintendo game. So a lot of the characters never reserved that special place in my heart. I tried to look at everyone without bias, and I think both designs, old and new, are completely valid. I think the most important part is for both designs to be consistent within themselves, and I think for the most part, both are. even when 2 new characters are added, or some changed. Anyway, here's my ideal mineral town. Oh, and for the record, as far as field models go, I definitely prefer the sprites in the original over the new game's chibi models. Okay, now that we're well acquainted and settled in, it's time to get to work. So the field that's left to us is, well, it's a mess. Weeds everywhere, branches and stones, even some bigger rocks and stumps. We can jump over any obstacle as long as the space is clear on the other side. But we gotta make room for our crops. We bring out the sickle to chop some weeds. Starting out, this tool will do 1 weed per swing, and we'll occasionally find some colored grass in the remake. Our default axe can only chop branches. In the new game, you can see that you gather the lumber into your rucksack. You don't see it in the old because it's automatically sent to the material shed. Our default hammer can only smash stones. In the new game, you can see that you gather the material stone into your rucksack. You don't see it in the old game because the material stone doesn't exist. You only use lumber in the old game. Now we've got to collect both. Now that we've got a little space cleared, it's time to till the ground. Our default hoe will do 1 square at a time, and we get a few rewards while digging. The money that you find will rain down on you in the remake, whereas it's neatly kept in a bag in the original. And as per tradition, we'll usually find our first power berry in the ground. Lastly, we'll occasionally find some critters in the dirt. You can whack-a-mole with your hammer. Now let's finish that 3x3 square. Since this is in the style of classic Harvest Moon, 1 bag of seeds will plant a 9-square plot. As you can see, the field square changes accordingly in the remake. That indicator is super helpful for keeping everything in line, something some other games would do well to implement. But you can turn it off if you want it to match the original. Watering is pretty straightforward. Our default watering can will do 1 square at a time. 2 days later, here's the middle stage of our crop. And then harvest time. With our turnips fully grown, we can ship them. And this is where that improved rucksack comes in handy. In the new game, we can collect all 9 before even upgrading. There is a lot of back and forth in the old game to collect all 8. Hold on, only 8? Yeah, well that's because of that pesky middle crop. See, in classic Harvest Moon, you cannot walk through your crops, so there's always one that gets neglected. In the remake, you can run through everything. It may not seem like much, but this changes everything. Not only do you get your full yield of any seed bag, but you can now utilize every single square of your field. In the old game, you have to leave appropriate spacing. But look at this. Same crops, but much less room being taken up. Back to the original for a second. This isn't so bad with one-time crops like turnips. A day or 2 later, you can still get that middle crop. But the multi-yield crops, like these cucumbers, you're locked out the entire season. Even if you get enough rain or have an upgraded watering can, the veggie will be there, but you can't get to it. Unless of course you want to destroy the blocking crops. So besides the inventory management, this has to be the biggest mechanic change in the remake. But let's move on, because there's other work to be done apart from farming. Just south of the farm, we find some small stumps. These require a level 2 charge, and they respawn every day. We can sometimes find more stumps in the secret forest in the remake, but mostly there'll be big stones here. Since the secret forest isn't in the original game, we instead find more stumps by the hot spring. These are fully grown trees in the remake. A fully upgraded axe will take out all stumps in the area. Same with the hammer to the stones. You don't even have to hit it. The fully charged sickle will take out all weeds on the screen in the old game, and a large square covering most of the screen in the new game. Here's the full hoe. And then the watering can. Alright, let's head to the mines. The mine is littered with rocks that have a chance to drop ore when smashed. All rocks share a sprite in the original, and there's 2 different models of rock in the remake. They all function the same. To go lower, we gotta dig down with our hoe. It's a staircase in the old game, and a ladder in the new. Your hammer and hoe will only do 1 square at a time within the mine, regardless of upgrades, which is a total bummer considering there's 255 floors to reach. At least they added pitfalls in the remake. The original doesn't have these shortcuts, instead having floors with absolutely no way down. Thankfully that's gone in the new game. There's lots to find in the mines, so here's a few item comparisons. Mistral is now called Mithril, and ore spawns by floor have been slightly altered. There's also tons of extras to find within the mine. And come wintertime, we've got a whole new mine to explore. Another 255 floors to begrudgingly spelunk. At least things are different here, starting with the walls. They're icy in the remake to match the winter setting. A nice touch compared to the reused wall in the old game's winter mine. The rocks here drop gems instead of ore. Here's another comparison. Once we get down to floor 9, we find a new path. It's more cave-like in the remake. Entering will bring us to the underground lake. You can do some fishing here, assuming you brought your rod. But you probably won't catch much. Come back later on, and you just might catch a legendary fish. Speaking of fishing, let's go get our rod. It's the only tool we don't start out with, instead obtaining it from Zach. We can only catch small fish at its default level. Here's the full charge. Mostly larger fish will be caught with a higher charge, though we'll occasionally get a small fish or 2. There's lots of locations to choose from, with an extra being added to the new game. Let's head back to the farm. With our field cleared up, we can plant some more crops. All of the old crops are still present, but the new game added 2 more in the autumn: azuki beans and chili peppers. Sweet potatoes are now yams. We have to plant our own grass in the old game. We still can plant it in the new game, or we can just wait for it to spread from the corner. Grass doesn't spread in the original, and instead of simply setting the seedling, you have to sow it from seed like you would any other crop. Also, there's different stages of grass in the original. In the remake, grass is always fully grown, it's just a matter of how far it spreads. After cutting the grass, we collect the fodder in the new game. The original automatically sends it straight to our silo. Just like the weeds in the remake, the grass also has a chance to spawn colored grass. There's so much work ahead of us, it can be easy to tire ourselves out. The new meters in the corner are really helpful for managing stamina and fatigue. The face changes depending on how tired you are, and turns blue just before you're about to pass out. The original just depended on you watching your character's animations, though he would literally go blue in the face before passing out. Okay, that's enough hard work for now. Let's wind down and take a walk. The scenery changes with the seasons, so here's a few key differences. So going from spring to summer, there's a slight difference in greens. Both games have it, but it's slightly more noticeable in the original. Springtime had these little flowers along the paths in the remake, where summer had none. They're absent in both seasons in the original. The summertime square has these little tufts of grass in the new game. And then the beach has these parasols in both versions, but only in summer. Autumn is completely distinguished in the remake. So many fall colors. You know it's autumn without even looking at the date. Whereas the original, well, our only tell is the AU at the bottom. Well, there are some colorful trees by Gotz's house, though these are the only ones. These same trees also turn pink in the springtime. Here they are in winter, completely bare. They're holding a lot of snow in the original, plus the pine trees are much more apparent in the old game. So snow covers nearly everything in both games, though the snowfall looks a lot heavier in the old game. Paths are completely covered, rooftops pure white. It's more of a light dusting in the remake. The dirt paths are completely clear, and the brick paths are simply lined with snow. I really like the detail in the square's bricks. There's no snow in the gaps. The beach is completely snowed out in the original, but again, a light snow in the remake. Even the dock is mostly clear. I like the frost on the boat though. Here's the vineyard in all seasons. The remake has yellowed grapes in the spring. Both have red in the summer. Autumn, the new vines change color. And in winter, they're gone in the original. They're only darkened and snowed over in the remake. Here's the town's flower display. Yellow in the spring. Summer has pink in the old and blue in the new. Autumn's the reverse. Blue in the old, pink in the new. And then empty in the wintertime. All these flowers are also seen around the houses. Here's the sprite's hut in each season. And then forageables. Toy flower, yellow grass, bamboo shoot, among others in spring. Wild grapes and pink cat in summer. 3 types of mushroom, regular, poisonous, and matsuki, or truffle, depending on version. Blue magic flowers, chestnut, and apples for fall. And then white grass in the winter, though the remake gives us oranges as well. This little hidden path in the original is no longer there, though we can still find our white grass down below, or behind the church. Here's the overlook in each, much more scenic in the remake. And what about weather? Well, here's some rain. Droplets in the old and sort of strands in the new. Easier to see on the beach. I like the look of the original, even if it is a bit unrealistic seeing each individual drop. The new rain looks fine when you're not staring at it, but when you stop and look at it, it looks a touch weird. Though they both do just fine. I like the impact in the new game, how you see the rain hitting the ground and the water. It's not on the rooftops though. On the mountain, sky's gray, and we see storm clouds, much more dramatic in the remake. Okay, here's snow, subtle in both. And then the mountaintop. Of course the lake's frozen over in winter. And look at these new snowmen. I love it. But it gets better. Towards the end of the month, look at all these decorations. And when the lights go out, beautiful. Our town map is also affected by the seasons. Same small changes in the old game, such as the South Forest trees and parasols in summer. The new game's maps have neat little visual effects. Petals in spring, grass clippings in summer, leaves of course in autumn, and snowfall in the winter time. So the seasons go by and time passes, but just how fast? Well, let's test it. I'll sit still for 12 hours and compare time. 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. And we'll leave the farm so Zach doesn't interrupt. So I have this set to 10 times normal speed, with timers keeping track down to the frame. 60 FPS by the way. It's nice to see the day change. Notice that travel stone looks different between the two games. So the new game hit 6:30 p.m. 102 frames before the old game. But then again, the GBA game is jumping between 98 and 100% in the emulation. So I'm fully confident in saying both games, the days go by at the exact same speed. Now that enough time has passed, let's check out the upgrades we can get as time goes on in the game. Default house. Boom, it's upgraded. So first we find the upgraded bed, which strangely enough is just a bed next to a bed, and they don't exactly match in the new game. Here's the vase we can buy from Juan. That Sunsweet flower is exclusive to the remake. And then the shiny new LCD TV, which of course is not in the original. The new game also added these interesting books, which let you skip between 1 and 3 hours at a time. The mirror, of course, we start out with in Story of Seasons, but is bought later on in Harvest Moon. The stocking from Ellen, used only once a year. Big cabinet, big fridge. And here's the kitchen with all its appliances. The oven has switched sides, and the blender and rolling pin have swapped places. Here's some recipes. In the remake, you need to know the recipe before cooking, but in the original, you can experiment, often resulting in a failed dish. The new game still has the failed dish, though reserved only for when Karen cooks. Here's the fireplace. Let's light it. Cozy. And then the bathroom. The door handle is switched sides. One strange thing about the remake is the doors never open. Here's the record player we buy from Van. Some good tunes. Here's a quick music comparison. So the remake gives us these display shelves, which let us display bachelor items and trophies. A few of the items have changed, such as Popori's Mudball. It's now Popori's Duro Dango. It's nice to be able to show them off. Though more shelves would be welcomed, it's not like we don't have the space. The table changes when we upgrade our house. It's rectangular now in both games. And the last change is with the looks. I went with blue walls and checkered floors in the new game. Let's head out. Here's the wacky mailbox you get to upgrade to. And then the strange doghouse in the old game. In the new one, our pets just kinda hang out in this area before spreading out around our farm. Here's the upgraded barn and silo. We can talk to our animals in both. And in the remake, we can hand feed them to increase affection, though you can still use the feeding bins. But if you forget to feed them, they'll get sick and eventually die, but only in the original game, cause in the remake, they'll live forever no matter what. Here's the sheep. They're pink in the new game. And alpacas are added, as well as variants of cow. Coffee cow, strawberry cow, and fruit cow. All animals have 6 grades of products they can yield, and it's determined by affection and festival wins. The remake locks the default animal's affection at 5 hearts, and adds 1 to the maximum hearts each generation, making breeding more important, but also more tedious. There's now a butter maker. To get our animals outside, we used to have to ring the bell, then push each of them out the door. Now we can simply step outside and ring the big bell. They all come out on their own. It's all or nothing though. You won't be able to choose which ones come out or stay in the barn. Horse ride. Here's the upgraded coop. The chickens will leave their eggs on the ground. The new game has rabbits in the coop, who have fluffy fur like a sheep. So we can't talk to the chickens in the original. Instead we pick them up, which I kind of miss. I mean, there's not much reason to pick up animals anymore, but it's cool to carry them around. It's a good idea to create a sort of pen for them, so you don't have to hunt them down. In the remake, all coop residents hang out in this dedicated area. So chickens aren't the only animal we could pick up, our dog too. We can even take him into town and show him off. A huge shame this isn't present in the remake. Now it's getting late, and it's time to put our animals back inside. It's a whole process in the original. In the remake, well, we don't have to do anything. Not even ring that big bell again, cause all animals will automatically go inside at 8 o'clock. It's convenient. Now, that's a lot of work, right? Well, we don't have to do it alone. Harvest Sprites, take over for us. We've got some festivities to attend. So this game has 2 types of festivals. Ones where you do stuff, and ones where you kinda don't. I'll make this quick. White Day, you get gifts. Spring Derby, you race. Cooking Fest, you cook. Fetch Fest, play fetch with a capybara. Cluck Cluck Clash, sumo chickens. Winning gets you gold eggs. Moo Moo Fest, you do nothing, but if you win, you get gold milk. Fireworks. Concert. The lamest festival ever. Harvest. Potluck. Moonlight. Autumn Derby. Same as Spring Derby, but fall. Fluffy Fest. Again, you do nothing, but if you win, you get gold wool. Pumpkin Jamboree. Trick or treat. Valentine's Day. You get gifts. Boy edition. Starlight. Stocking Night. And 2 different New Year's Eve parties at different times, but you can't attend both. And then you eat mochi. You know, those festivals weren't all that fun. Let's visit our sprite friends for the real games. Harvest Button Mash. Keep the chickens feeding. Water the correct square. Now we're talking. They'll even invite us to their tea party. But enough games. It's time to settle down. So Harvest Moon Friends of Mineral Town had the marriageable bachelorettes Popori, Anne, Mary, Karen, and Ellen, with the goddess being a secret candidate. Harvest Moon More Friends of Mineral Town had the marriageable bachelors Gray, Rick, Cliff, Kai, and Doctor, with the secret bachelors being Kappa, Gourmet, and Juan. Still not sure why he's a secret. Well, in Story of Seasons, Friends of Mineral Town, all these bachelors and bachelorettes are marriageable, regardless of your gender. This is the first time Harvest Moon, or Story of Seasons, had the same-sex marriage. So you've got plenty of options. Oh, and there's also Brandon and Jennifer. So rival marriages are gone from the remake, where other characters will go ahead and link up if you move too slow. So you really get to take your time. Hearts are now displayed on the menu, so that's convenient. And there's 2 additional heart events for each character. Once you get them to 8 hearts, you can give them this preserved flower, which is a sign you want to start dating. You can date anyone and everyone before finally committing to one marriage. So let's compare marriages. I won't do all of them, of course, so I'll pick 3. Karen, since she was always my GBA wife. Gray, since you can now date the same sex. And Rand, since she's my new favorite candidate. So the weddings go smoothly. Each marriage candidate has an exclusive wedding portrait, which is nice to see. A commemorative photo. And then the credits roll, marking the end of the game, though of course you can always continue playing after the ending in the Harvest Moon games. Well, most of the time. So your spouse moves in. Depending on who you chose, dialogue will be different, but overall, not that much changes. Both games are the same in this regard. After some time passes, your wife will give birth. Or you will if you're playing as a girl. Or the goddess will grant you a child if you can't conceive. But anyway, here's your kid in both versions. And that's really it for this game. Marriage brings about the credits, your child is a post-game reward, and most other things are already said and done. But I'll throw in a few miscellaneous comparisons before closing this out. The gold lumber is one notoriously strange thing about the original game. You obtain it as a gift, but if you use it, everyone in town will hate you for showing off. They visit the farm just to scrutinize. And they even change your name, Moneybags for the guy, and Greedy Witch for the girl. The remake alters this little issue. Thomas will still give you the golden lumber as a gift, but adds on how things have changed from past times. You can now proudly display your golden stump, though if your goal was to anger the townsfolk, you can still gift it to anyone to bring out their angered reactions. Wong will still play his apple game with you, but his apples look different. They're a basic red in the original, but they're possibly painted in the new game? What a scam. Gotts will still take 3 days to renovate your mailbox, though he actually touches the mailbox in the remake. The original had him chilling inside, despite the mailbox being, well, outside. Here's some spookiness for you. If you check your TV at one specific time, you get a weird message. It has to be 4:44, which is apparently bad luck in Japan. Use your clock to get the time just right, and then, yeah, weird. It seems to go on forever. The new game will eventually exit out, but the old had you restarting your game. The other spookiness is in the mirror. Checking it at midnight will either show a shadow or give a message, but unfortunately I couldn't seem to trigger this in the remake. The field cheat still works in the remake. This keeps your crops growing from one season to the next, so you can have pineapples in winter if you wanted. To do this, you have to exhaust all your energy and watch the day turn from 5:50 a.m. to 6 a.m. Friends of Mineral Town had these bachelorette items which served no practical purpose. More Friends of Mineral Town repurposed these items into usable gadgets, and a few of these have made their way into the remake, though in different forms. The original items still exist, such as Mary's book, Karen's wine, and Ellie's pressed flour, but now their usable counterparts are separate items. Quizbook does questions in the library, Van's Favorite can be given to Van for exclusive items, and Mystery Flower can be sold to Juan for a decent amount of money. Or you can gift it to the goddess. And last thing I've got for you are the cottages. First is the Seaside Cottage. Quite easy to obtain in the remake. Just gift the goddess 150 items on different days. The original required GameCube links, which I've never done. The Town Villa. Bought for 10 million gold, and requires 999 lumber and an additional 999 stone in the remake. Easy, but costs a lot. And finally, the dreaded Mountain Cottage. In both games, it's obtained by reaching your 50th year of marriage. Yes, you heard that correctly. 50 years. And also, yes, that is my footage of the Mountain Cottage, which only means I'm mad enough to obtain it. In fact, I did more or less a full completion of Story of Seasons, Friends of Mineral Town, and I documented the full process. That will be a separate video to supplement this one, and will also serve as my review for the game, so check that out. My final bit of comparison will be the rings that are collected throughout the game. They're not in Friends of Mineral Town, but they were in more Friends of Mineral Town, so it's nice to see them in the remake. That 7th ring was my final bit of completion, after the Mountain Cottage and the Truth Jewels. But again, that's all in the other video. As for this one, well, it's come to a close. I was stoked to hear they were remaking Friends of Mineral Town, and when it finally arrived, it was a blast to play through. And I figured, since I was already comparing Final Fantasy VII to its remake, it could be fun to do the same for another one of my favorite series. Farm life has never been so exhilarating. So thanks for joining me in this side-by-side journey into a town that so many of us remember visiting at one point or another. It may look different now, but the towns remain the same. I hope to see you here again sometime.